Unfortunately, it's that time again where I have to talk about abortion. I really wish we could just see a day where we look back on abortion and go, good God, what was that? How terrible. I pray that that day will come, but I'm a realist. I doubt it ever will. But the date today, Tuesday, October 27th, 2015. I am Ryan Porter, and I am addressing yesterday's episode of The View. It's not a show that I watch, but I have been made aware that Dr. Ben Carson, who is currently running for president of the United States, amongst many other people, both on the right and on the left, Dr. Ben Carson was singled out because he believes that there is no justification to abort a living human being, even in cases of rape. And the cast of The View unanimously decided that his views are pathetic and despicable. You know what I find to be pathetic and despicable, cast of The View? That you can with a straight face say that you're always fair and balanced. You didn't give the man a chance. You attacked him on every level simply because you think abortion is about a woman's right to choose. That's why you're pro-choice, isn't it? Because it's all about a woman's right to choose. But let's talk about rights for a second. I have a fair and balanced question for all of you on The View. What gives each and every one of you the unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness above someone who is yet to be born? Why do you, a person outside of the womb, have rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but a person inside the womb does not? Can you answer that question? Can you tell me? I'm desperate to hear your answer. Why are you a person and they are not? Because you see, the crux of the whole matter is not a woman's right to choose, but who is and who is not a living human being with rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the center and the core of the abortion debate. And if you were fair and balanced, you'd realize that. You can have a civil conversation on abortion and talk about all of the factors included in abortion, but the firm, rock-solid foundation upon which every argument needs to be built and weighed is that an unborn child is a living human being. This is not a matter of personal opinion. This is not a matter of personal belief. This is not a matter of religious dogma. This is a proven medical, scientific fact. And all you have to do is talk to an embryologist, and they will tell you that when a sperm fertilizes an egg, all of the genetic information that makes a person is instantaneously present. And the only thing that happens after conception is the level of development that occurs, but that development doesn't stop occurring outside of the womb. It's not a level of development for 9 months, and then all of a sudden, bing, human. It's a level of development that occurs from the moment of conception until the time of death, be it natural or unnatural death. But that continues past birth. And the amount of time that passes from conception. That also. But that doesn't make a person a person. I've said it 100 times before, and I'm going to keep saying it until you people get it through your thick heads. That it is a fact of medical science that an unborn human being is a human being. Which is why I asked the question, what gives you, the cast of The View, the unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, given the fact that there is fundamentally, medically, scientifically, no difference between you and an unborn child? At a base level, there's no difference. Because the only two things that change after conception is the amount of time that passes, and I mean, Whoopi, you're getting up there in years. Yar. I mean, to me, you'll always be Guinan, but you're getting up there in years. and the level of development. And as a man in his 30s, I can tell you that I'm reaching a level of development that I'm not really a fan of. But these things happen. Gray hair, wrinkles, joint problems, stuff like that. But these things happen as a person gets older. Just like as my children are currently getting older, they're changing. My 4-year-old's ability and capacity for speech is exponential compared to what it was a year ago. His hand-eye coordination and his ability to do complex tasks have expanded exponentially since the last year. I'm 6'2". My 4-year-old, almost 5-year-old, is half my height at this point. Half my height. The little tiny baby that I held on the day that he was born is half my height. But do any of these things make him more human than the day he was born? Or does the first few breaths that he took after he was born make him in any way, shape, or form more human than just before he took his first breaths? Because my wife is pregnant again. We're going to have another boy. It seems to be the way things are working. We just have boys. It's what happens. And every week, my wife gives me updates. What's going on with the baby? How is he developing? How is he growing? What can he do? You see, he's growing and developing inside of her womb, but none of these markers make him more human than he was the day before. They don't. And I challenge you, since you're fair and balanced, to give me one argument why. Why, at any level of development in utero, is a person less of a person? And then, what I find to be pathetic and despicable is not Dr. Carson's views, but that you, on The View, slammed him for comparing abortion to slavery. Well, let's think about this. Abortion is currently justified in America because the law says an unborn child is not a person, therefore they have no protection under the law. Well, in the days of slavery, it was firmly held, firmly believed that a Negro, as they said back then, was not a person. And slavery was okay because a Negro was less human than a white person. And we look at that today and we go, what a stupid argument. Of course, color of the skin doesn't make anyone more or less human. That's ridiculous. That's asinine. A person did not choose the color of their skin. They were conceived and born that way, but they're still a human being because whether you're black or white or Asian or Native American or Latino, it doesn't matter. You still have a heart that beats in your chest. You're a human being. It doesn't matter what color you are. So we look back at those laws and say, that was ridiculous to think that simply because someone is a different color, they're less human. Asinine and ridiculous. But Dr. Ben Carson, whoa, for saying that it's the same logical thought process, he's completely out of line. No, he's not. Think about it. An African American is less human and therefore able to be a slave and serve someone who is more human. And that's justifiable. In that day, that was justifiable. Absolutely justifiable. Because we tricked ourselves into thinking that they were less human, that justified the atrocity of slavery. Aha! Fast forward to the 20th century and the 21st century. We have tricked ourselves into believing that because of size and location, being small and being in utero, means they are not a person under the law, and therefore we can kill them. How can you claim on The View to be fair and balanced and not see the exact same thought process? I hate to burst your bubble, Whoopi, but you, as an African American woman, think just like a white European slave owner. You have the same rationale and the same logic as someone who owned slaves. Do you know that? Your brain thinks the same way that they do. And in both cases, slavery was wrong, and we know that today. And I pray to God on his throne that someday we realize abortion is wrong, and for the same reason. Because a person is a person. That's why abortion is wrong. Because a living human being is a living human being. And simply because an unborn child is smaller than you and inside its mother's womb does not mean that it's less human than you. In any way, shape, or form, you think just like a slave owner. You justify, you raise yourself up to some level of elitism that you're more human than someone else. And that's what slave owners did. So Dr. Ben Carson comparing abortion to slavery is spot on accurate, and I'll take it a step further. Take a breath, calm down. I'll take it a step further. The Holocaust, the same thought patterns and process and logic that led to the slaughter of 6 million Jews, is the same logic and the same pattern and the same thought process that leads to the slaughter of hundreds of millions of innocent human beings in America every year. That because they are less human, and the laws of Germany at the time of World War II stated that Jews were less human and therefore had no protection under the law, that led to concentration camps. I mean, it wasn't just all of a sudden one day, bam, concentration camps. It was a progress. It was progressive thought that led to the damnable killing of 6 million people for no other reason than because of who they were. It's the same thought process. The Jews were killed because the law said they were not people. Slaves were owned because the law said they were not people. Unborn children are killed because the law says they are not people. And you, fair and balanced cast of The View, had the audacity to say that Dr. Ben Carson is pathetic and despicable. Really? Can't you see at all? Or are you so blinded by your own views that you will not listen to reason or rational thought? My guess is you're so blinded by your own views, you will not listen to reason or rational thought. You give me one scientific fact as to why any of you on The View have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but an unborn child doesn't. And tell me that you don't sound like a slave owner. Tell me that you don't sound like a Nazi justifying killing Jews, because that's exactly what you sound like. Your level of narcissistic elitism, because I am outside of the womb, I have the right to all of these choices, is ridiculous. Stop it. Stop it. Be humble. Embrace the truth. The universal the truth. A living human being is not a living human being because of the size of the living human being. A living human being is not a living human being because of the level of development of the living human being. A living human being is not a living human being simply based on location, in utero or outside of the womb. And let's get back to rape. That was your big thing. Rape. Oh, well, you know, the woman, yeah, I understand rape is a violation of basic human rights. A woman's right to herself, her body, her sexuality, all of those are violated in rape. And I think, personally, rape ought to be a capital punishment, or at the very least, genitals need to be removed from a rapist. It's my opinion. The severity with which I see the atrocity of rape. But, getting back to that fundamental, what makes a person a person? The means of conception do not make a person a person. They don't. A child that is conceived in rape is not less human than me. I was conceived by a man and a woman in wedded bliss who loved each other unconditionally and wanted nothing more than to have a child. That's why I am here. Because my father and my mother loved each other and they wanted a child. That's why I'm here. Does that mean for the entire 9 months that I was in my mother's womb and for the rest of my life until I die, I get to be more human than someone who was conceived in rape? No. Is conception by rape visible? Is it a mark in the skin? Can I walk around this world and just know who was conceived by rape? No, I can't. Should I judge someone because of the means of their conception? No. And do you know why? Because they didn't choose to be conceived. They didn't. They did not. I have friends who were conceived out of wedlock who in an earlier generation would be called bastards. But you know, it's not visible on their skin. And I don't think they're any less human because I was conceived in marriage and they were conceived outside of marriage. I don't. As a matter of fact, I have a 14, almost 15-year-old stepson who is, God, he's the greatest thing in the world. He's really, there are no words. He's just wonderful. But he was conceived when, at a point in my life when I was just running around and just out of high school and, oh, I'm going to take a year off before college and isn't this going to be fun? That's the life that I was living. That is not the life that my wife was living. She was living a very hard life because she made the conscious decision to recognize that even though she wasn't married, she had conceived a child, and that it wasn't his fault he was conceived, it was hers. In that case, she wasn't raped, it was consensual, but she made the conscious decision that he shouldn't be punished because of something that she had done. And when I met my wife all those years later, she was upfront with me. She was honest with me about it. And I mean, my heart raced when she was telling me that there was this part of her past and that she had conceived a child and was like, oh, this is kind of going to be a deal breaker. And the relief, the weight that came off my shoulders when she said, I have a son. She chose life. And it was not easy for her. In any way, shape, or form, it was not easy for her. But she chose life. And now both of us share, along with his biological father, in loving and supporting and raising this amazing boy into a man. This wonderful personality that has hobbies and interests entirely different from his mother or his father or myself, but he just loves sharing them with us. He loves us encouraging him in it. And to watch him grow up, and now to watch him take care of the child that my wife and I have conceived together, his little brother, it's wonderful. But all of that denied should my wife have made the choice that she wasn't ready or couldn't do it or it would be too hard. Do you realize that feminism actually victimizes women in exponentially more ways than misogyny or chauvinism or chivalry ever could? It really does. It really does. You're helpless. You don't have all these choices. Feminism needs to be here for you. Don't tell women that they're weak. Don't tell women that they can't do it. How dare you? How pathetic and despicable for you, women on The View, to tell women that it's hard, they can't do it, there's not enough help out there for them, they can't do it on their own, so you might as well just go off and rip the child limb from limb and go about your merry life. Really? I'm pretty sure that's not the ideals of feminism. That's not empowering to women in any way, shape, or form. But I know. You're fair and balanced. No, you're not. You're not fair and balanced. You're not at all fair or balanced. And you're elitist is what you are. Anyone who's pro-choice, which is an incredibly deceptive way to say it, you don't care about choice. it's a woman's right to choose. You know who you're not giving a choice to? The living human being inside that woman. That's who you're not giving a choice to. That human being did not choose to be conceived, and yet it's someone else's choice whether or not they should continue on living. Fact. Abortion kills an innocent human being for the crime of being inconvenient. That is the only reason people are killed in abortion, is because they're inconvenient to someone. Inconvenient is not a crime, because there are times where my sons are inconvenient. There's times where they're damn irritating. Does that mean that I should kill them because, oh, you're inconvenient at the moment, or damn it, you're irritating, or it is just so hard to take care of you right now, I can't do it? Does that mean that I can chop my boys into little bits and throw them in a bag and dump them in a river somewhere? No, because that's called murder. Murder. To kill my children because they're inconvenient or irritating or just too hard to take care of sometimes is murder. But if they're really tiny and they just so happen to be located in my wife's womb, as my youngest son is, well, then it's not murder. But my youngest son, my son who is not yet born, he's doing the same thing that his brothers are doing. He's growing. He's developing. He's learning. He's responding to our voices. He's recognizing my voice over his brother's voice, over his mother's voice. And when he comes out of the womb, he will continue to grow, and he will continue to learn, and he will continue to develop. See, none of that stops simply because he's born. There's nothing that changes from the second before breath to the second after breath. Nothing changes in any substantial way that would make a breathing child more human than a child that isn't breathing. So you're elitists. That's what you are. You think because you're outside of the womb, you have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But because someone was conceived by rape, they don't have those rights. How can you be liberals and take rights away from other people? I don't get it. Can you fair and balanced answer that question for me? How can you be liberal in the 21st century and demand that someone else forfeit their rights for the convenience of someone else's rights? How can you, as a liberal, use the same reason and the same logic that supported and defended the Holocaust, that supported and defended slavery? How can you use that same rationale and logic and claim simply because it's convenient to you, that person's not a person, and be fair and balanced? And ultimately, and universally, not just the view, to all liberals in general, when a brain surgeon says that there's no reason to kill an unborn living human being, but a structural engineer who got his start doing fun little kitchen science experiments on the animated series of Back to the Future says there's plenty of reasons to kill a fertilized egg. Why do we trust the structural engineer who got his start making balloons inflate on top of soda bottles over and above a brain surgeon? Why do we trust the beliefs and opinions of Bill Nye the Science Guy, who has no formal training in embryology? Why do we trust him over and above embryologists themselves, over and above a brain surgeon? Why do you do that? Because their personal beliefs fit with yours. That's why. So if you want to be fair and balanced, you need to weigh all of the facts and all of the evidence, and let's have this abortion discussion with the foundation being that an unborn human being is exactly that, an unborn human being. Because that is not personal opinion anymore. That is not a matter of personal belief anymore. That is not a matter of religious dogma anymore. It is a fact of science that an unborn human being is a human being from the moment of conception and continues to be a human being until they die. And then at that point, they're a dead human being. But they're still human. So to the cast of The View, I've said this 100 times before. I'm going to keep saying it because it's the truth. In America, around the world, I imagine, a person is declared dead when their heart stops beating and all brain activity ceases. That is death. Reverse it. Life, then, is when the heart starts to beat and the brain starts to function and starts to develop. At the very least, that's life. It's just another level of development that occurs after conception. So, level of development doesn't determine life. So if someone dies when their heart stops and their brain stops, is someone not alive when their heart starts and their brain starts? Logic. Reason. See, science weighs in on this. Medical science weighs in on this. Philosophy weighs in on this. You have to think through some of these things in a philosophical manner, as in the question I kept asking, well, what makes a person a person? That's a philosophical question. But reason and logic also play their part, and facts certainly play their part. So to the cast of The View, Dr. Ben Carson, whether you like him or not, whether you support him for president or not, and at this point I can't say who I support for president of the United States. It's too early on. But Dr. Ben Carson is not pathetic and he's not despicable for saying, how dare he say, that a human being is a human being in spite of the way that he or she may have been conceived. I know, that's asinine and ridiculous that he would say something like that. What is pathetic and what is despicable is that you would say that a person is not a person if they were conceived in an inconvenient way. A person is not a person if they are inconvenient to the mother. But you are a person because you're outside of the womb, and therefore you have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is pathetic and that is disgusting that you would say that. Absolutely. It's disgusting. And that you think the same way slave owners think. That all we have to do is claim that they're not a person and then we can do whatever we want to them. You think just like slave owners, and you think just like Nazis who killed Jews. You really do. If we deny the personhood, we can justify anything that we do to them after. But science has proven that an unborn human being is an unborn human being. Is an unborn human being. So let's be fair and balanced. Let's have this abortion conversation, but we need to understand that all of the adoption issues, all of the welfare of the woman issues, all of these issues that come along with keeping the child, or at least giving birth to the child, all of these issues need to be examined under the light of the fact that it's a child. That needs to be considered first and foremost above anything else. It's a child. It's a living human being. The fact that it's in its mother's womb doesn't make it less human. The fact that it's smaller than us doesn't make it less human. The fact that it's underdeveloped doesn't make it less human. There's nothing that makes it less human than us. And to say and imply that there is to be a Nazi and a slave owner. That's the truth. So, to the ladies on The View, I'm sorry, but you really are just a bunch of mindless, cackling hens that love to rip people to shreds that believe differently than you do. And the blind sheep that watch your show and cheer on with you, well, you and them both are equally pathetic and disgusting.